Wave and Milano, signing on.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts for the latest world news. Israel and militants in Gaza have engaged in the heaviest assault and bombardment since the latest outbreak in violence. Israel bombed targets in Gaza while militants launched rockets at a raft of Israeli towns. Palestinians have been trying to flee to Gaza City. Israel says there was no ground incursion overnight. The UN Security Council is now meeting on Sunday to discuss the crisis after postponing the meeting twice. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more.
The B.16172 variant is starting to spread increasingly rapidly in the UK, and control it is now a focus for the government. 800,000 PCR tests have been sent to 15 different areas of England, including parts of the northwest and London, with Vaccines Minister Nadeem Sahawi urging those living in areas of concern to get tested and isolate if positive. The government is also said to be looking at ways to flex the rollout of vaccines in the worst-hit areas, speeding up the time between first and second doses. With lockdown restrictions set to ease further in England from Monday, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, said nothing dissuades him from continuing with his plan, but that roadmap does not rule out reimposing further measures locally if needed.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. At the end of a dreadful week in the Middle East, we're looking today at the respective military strategies of Israel and Hamas. The Israelis have been shocked this week by the scale of the rocket attacks unleashed against them from the Gaza Strip. Hamas reaching deeper into Israeli territory than ever before. Belle True, Middle East correspondent for The Independent, says nerves in Israel are on edge because of the indiscriminate nature of the Hamas weaponry.
Places like Rishon LeZion or Tel Aviv who are not used to having these rockets are suddenly diving for cover. But in terms of their actual targeting, you have to remember that these rockets are indiscriminate. Hamas and the other militant groups have been accused of war crimes. They can't necessarily exactly target. These are pretty homemade weapons. They exactly target what they want. So it's not necessarily that they're actually hitting anything specifically. They're just hitting Israel.
But in Gaza, civilians are terrified of the Israeli military. The army claims to give warnings before it destroys residential tower blocks there, but human rights groups fault the Israeli strategy.
The targeting of these residential buildings has been criticized by human rights groups who talked about it violating international law because they are residential buildings. And so I'm just going to quote Human Rights Watch at you, but they said it's hard to see any military purpose here that would justify destroying the homes of hundreds of civilians and the livelihoods of people who run or work in small businesses located in these buildings.
The conflict is dystopian and there is no de-escalation in sight, despite the pleas of the international community. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a reminder now of the hour's top story. Israel and militants in Gaza have engaged in the heaviest clashes and bombardments since the latest outbreak in violence. Israel bombed targets in Gaza while militants launched rockets at a raft of Israeli towns. And that's the latest world news from Feature Story News. I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
You're listening to IRRS, the Italian radio relay service. We welcome your reception reports and encourage your program comments. They are very much desired and useful to our program producers. To obtain a special numbered QSL card, please write to IRRS, P.O. Box 10980 in 20110, Milano, Italy. That's IRRS, P.O. Box 10980 in 20110, Milano, Italy.
This is the news in brief from the United Nations.